One of the biggest and best ways to save money in corrections is to stop people from getting roped up in the justice system in the first place. Idaho has 12 youth assessment centers across the state targeted at keeping kids out of the system and instead helping families with their needs before their problems get worse. The centers are one reason juvenile incarceration in the state has decreased. Earlier this year, producer Ruth Brown visited one center in Burley to learn more about the services they offer and how they help youth.
Here's an example from juvenile corrections. The progress we've made in standing up youth crisis centers and safe teen assessment centers around the state has contributed to a reassuring trend. Over the past 5 years, even with a growing population, the number of juveniles in state custody has dropped by half.
That's a line from Governor Brad Little's 2024 State of the State address. Idaho Reports visited the state's first youth assessment center to learn about the benefits they have to offer and some of the kids they help. The goal for youth assessment is not just to keep kids out of detention, but to keep them out of the system entirely. That means avoiding going before a judge, avoiding foster care, and instead focusing on helping the child and their family.
When I learned more about what was happening with the juvenile justice system and how kids were entering in through small offenses or first-time offenses and how they would stay in the system for a really long time, it became a passion project for Sherry and myself and the rest of the staff to get these kids and these families an alternative to ending up being in the justice system for a really long time, that they would have an opportunity to get help and resources.
The state now has 12 youth assessment centers, up from the previous 8. They're designed to keep kids out of juvenile detention, out of foster care, and offer family resources. The first to be established started in Burley at Simply Hope. The Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections values the assessment centers as a starting point for helping kids rather than incarcerating them.
Certainly our kids are not unique to kids in the past. Challenging issues, substitution in the home, either themselves or their parents, mental health issues, either themselves or their parents. What the assessment centers are going to allow is a lot quicker access to those services than introducing that youth to the formal system by way of a charge that they might pick up on themselves, but really a lot quicker access to those services than maybe we had before, which then the quicker the access, the better the outcome traditionally, and you can start seeing kids take that off-ramp versus continuing down the on-ramp of a potential corrections future.
The youth assessment centers are just one piece of the puzzle for helping youth in need, but they have made progress.
About 70% of Idahoans are within an hour of a youth assessment center at the moment. Some of those assessment centers offer virtual options, which is great. So in the future, looking to increase the amount of kids and families who have access to a physical center within that hour would be wonderful, I think. I told a committee I was in front of once that I'm actively working to get myself out of a job, which my wife wasn't happy to hear, but I would be honored to be the last juvenile corrections director.
This year, the legislature significantly reduced the amount of funding youth assessment centers will receive. Initially, the state gave the centers $10.6 million over 2 years, but the intent was that they would eventually be self-sustaining. In 2024, the legislature appropriated $350,000 to the centers for some enhancement programs.
Kids that are formally processed or incarcerated are more likely to recidivate, they're more likely to have another crime, less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to get a job. So we're seeing those families with those same exact issues, but we're able to take maybe a closer look at what's really going on in the family.
That's Allison Tate, the Ada County Juvenile Services Director. Ada County has a youth assessment center called The Bridge, which offers those same resources. Rather than send a child to juvenile detention, the Bridge can help the family before criminal charges enter the picture. So, how are kids sent to an assessment center?
They get referred either through the school or juvenile justice, parent referral, or even self-referral. They can just walk in. When they come in, we're just looking for if they are suicidal, if they're angry, depressed, if there has been self-harm. Those are our main concerns, and just kind of see where they're at. So the MACI, the Massachusetts Adolescent Youth Screener, looks at depression, anxiety, anger, somatic complaints, trauma, thought disturbance, suicidal ideation, thoughts, behaviors. So we're just getting a snapshot just to see where they're at right now and what their needs are.
Youth assessment centers are different than crisis centers in that they are not open 24 hours a day and don't offer some of the resources a crisis center may have for a person in emergent need of care.
Case management is the main service, but through case management we can help with any needs or resources. So it's not just for the youth, it's for the whole family. So if there's food instability, if there's lack of basic needs, we have resources in the community that we can connect them with and get them the help.
Since opening, the Burley location has seen 234 kids as of January 25th, most of which needed mental health services.
So the majority of the kids we saw, about 39% of them were mental health and 27 was suicide risk or self-harm.
One of those kids in need was Ty Gibbons, a 19-year-old senior at Burley High.
My mom referred me to Teen Hope, and what was kind of going on is I was just kind of going through a dark time in my life. And in our community, we got a great community. There's just not a ton of sources where we can turn to for this type of stuff. But here it came into Teen Hope, and it was a great place to start. I think for kids that are struggling with not just mental health, but with like other aspects of life, I think open therapy is just something that a lot of kids need, especially with distributing factors like social media and a lot of things that weigh kids down nowadays.
The program also offers deterrence programs for kids who are caught for the first time vaping or for facing truancy tickets.
So they get referred to us by the school. They do a 6-week program for vaping, and it's mainly education. They're so smart. They already know all the risks and everything, but it's just making them more aware and helping them to make a better choice for themselves. Our truancy program is Wednesdays, and they come from 5 to 6 for 6 to 10 weeks, depending. So if they've been coming 6 weeks and are missing school, then they have to come back and meet with the case manager, and we have to address those issues. We do have an incentive program for the kids in truancy, so every 2 weeks, if they haven't missed school, they get a gift card. So it starts with like just a soda or a coffee, and then it goes up.
Truancy is also an issue that isn't always done with criminal intent, Walters says.
This is their first offense. This is the first time, for whatever reason, a lot of the families are low income and they use the kids as babysitters. So they miss school to take care of their youngest siblings and stuff. So these kids do not need to be in the juvenile system. They need help, they need resources, but sending them straight to probation just utilizes those resources on a kid that may not really need them.
For 15-year-old Star Morin, a Cascia High School student, getting caught vaping and being sent to the Youth Assessment Center turned out to be a good thing. She was provided counseling and continues coming to Simply Hope's youth programming even after completing the vaping classes.
When there's programs like this, it gives us hope and that there's people who care and people who will help us in times of need.